The dude is literally on a panel watching women twerk.
Welcome back. As promised, man, I want to continue reading this book, the Kolbrin Bible. Man, this is a great book, y'all. So, you know what I decided to do, because I read so much of the book. It's truly like a read, like a Bible that was written by some Irish people who seen what happened in the days of the Bible from an Irish and an Egyptian perspective. You know what I'm saying? It's very, 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 very interesting, y'all. Look, welcome to the show. I am your host, Lance Single, and this is the Arguments Lead Man's Cave. Let's get into it. The Kolbrin Bible. So I want to read, I jumped from the creation book and I went into a book called the Book of Manuscripts. Man, this book, y'all, I'm about to read it. I'm gonna read it. It's an open panel. It's an open panel discussion. It's an open panel discussion reading, if you will. I mean, anybody can get on if you hear something that might jar your memory, because we trying to make connections. We trying to put it together, and you got to turn over all stones. Leave no stone unturned, bro. You got to look at everything. So I want to get off into this book. Go ahead and screen share. Go into the Zoom. Here on the Zoom. Get a manuscript. All right. I'm looking on my hold on. I'm looking on my YouTube right now. Let me get to my page. All right. This is the Book of Manuscripts. This look how it opens. This is the Book of Manuscripts, chapter 3, verse 1. Men forget the days of the destroyer. Only the wise know where it went, and that it will return in its appointed hour. No man knows the days nor the hour. Chapter 1, Scroll of Imad. The writings from the olden days tell of strange things and of old great happenings in the times of our father who lived in the beginning. It is told that in the country, that lived in the beginning, all men can know of such times is declared in the Book of Ages. But the gods had their birth in events of things, which were in the beginning. It is told in the courtyards that there was a time when heaven and earth were not apart. Truth echoes even there, for heaven and earth are yet joined in men. So you read in the book of creation that when the creator, the great craftsman is what he's called, formed man, he took up things from the earth and then he breathed in it, making him man God. A man God. He was reborn as a man God. That's what it says. It says, it is written that God once walked the earth with men and dwelt within a cave above a garden where men labored. God encompasses all that is and cannot be contained in a cave. Look to the sacred writings for truth. It is told that women made God angry, and he took himself into the sky, removing heaven from man because of his disgust for women. Damn. It is also told that men offended God by imitating him. These are tales made by man. This is not wisdom, for the sacred writings reveal the plans of God, and these things cannot be as told. It is the talk of the country yard. It is the knowledge of the outer place. Men talk of the land of Oben, from whence they came. Not from Oben towards the south came men from the great land of Ramakui first felt his step, but by the encircling waters over at the rim it lay. Encircling waters over at the rim it lay. There were mighty men in those days, and of their land the first book speaks thus. Their dwelling place were set in the swamplands, from whence no mountains rose, in the land of many waters slow flowing to the sea, in the shallow lakelands among the mud, out beyond the great plain of reeds, at the place of many flowers beckoning plant and tree, where trees grew beards and had branches like ropes, which bound them together, for the ground would not support them. There were butterflies like birds and spiders as large as the outstretched arms of man. Damn. There were butterflies like birds and spiders as large as the outstretched arms of man. The birds of the air and fishes of the waters had hues which dazzled the eyes. They lured men to destruction. Even insects fed on the flesh of men. There were elephants in great numbers with mighty curved tusks. The pillars of the netherworld were unstable. In a great night of destruction, the land fell into the abyss and was lost forever. When the earth became light next day, man saw man driven to madness. All was gone. Men clothed themselves with the skins of beasts and were eaten by wild beasts. Things with clashing teeth used them for food. A great horde of rats devoured everything, so man died of hunger. The brain eaters hunted men down and slew them. The brain eaters? What? Hunted men down and slew them. Children wandered like plain land, like the wild beasts, for man and woman became stricken with sickness that passed over the children. An issue covered their bodies, which swelled up and burst, while flame consumed their bellies. Every man who had an issue of seed within him, and every woman who had a flow of blood died. Wow. The women that was on a period died. And men who had any issue, I'm assuming of semen, I don't know, seed, but it could be any issue. The children grew up without instruction and having no knowledge, turned to strange ways and beliefs. They became divided according to their tongues. Wow, so all of the adults died. All of the, because it wasn't no, I mean, most of them anyhow, according to this, and the children grew up without instruction, having no knowledge, turned to strange ways and beliefs. Excuse me. It says, they became divided according to their tongues. This was the land from whence man came. The great one came from Ramakui, and wisdom came from S.V.D.L. The people who came with Nadai were wise in the ways of the seasons and in the wisdom of the stars. They read the book of heaven with understanding. The book of heaven? Is that the law, the Torah? I mean, I'm just trying to make connections, bro. I'm just trying to put it together. See something. It says, the people who came with Nadai were wise in the ways of the seasons and in the wisdom of the stars. They read the book of heaven with understanding. They covered their dead with potter's clay and hardened it, for it was not their custom to place their dead in boxes. Wow. Now that makes a lot of sense. To bury your dead in potter's clay, you know what I'm saying? I mean, totally concealing it from all of the elements in it. Wow. So I imagine they would have to still relieve it of all of the fluids and stuff so that it don't explode. But, you know, if you supposed to come back to life, it would behoove you to, you know, probably be put in the potter's clay like the Tibetan monks. That's crazy. Anyway, let's continue. Those who came with the Great One were cunning craftsmen in stone. They were carvers of wood and ivory. The high god was worshipped with strange light in places of great silence. They paid homage to the huge sleeping beast in the depths of the sea, believing it to bear the earth on its back. They believed its stirrings plunged lands to destruction. Some said it burrowed beneath them. In Ramakui, there was a great city with roads and waterways, and the fields were bound with walls of stone and canals. In the center of the land was a great flat-topped mountain of God. That sounds like that map. The land, it says, in Ramakui, there was a great city with roads and waterways, and fields were bound with walls of stone and canals. And in the center of the land was the great flat-topped mountain of God. The city had walls of stone and was decorated with stones of red and black, white shells and feathers. There were heavy green stones in the land, and stones patterned in green, black, and brown. There were stones of Saka, which men cut for ornaments, stones which became molten for cunning work. They built walls of black. Now this is 3,600 years old. I mean, even if it's not true, it's written, and the ideology, the ideas of all of this stuff is what's in their time. So all of the stuff that they naming is like, it had to be in the head of the author for him to write this. Let's get it, man. They built walls of black glass and bound them with glass by fire. How did he know that? See what I'm saying? If this is written that long ago, how do they know how to make glass? They built walls of black glass and bound them with glass by fire. They used strange fire from the netherworld, which was but slightly separated from them, and foul air from the breath of the dam rose in their midst. They made eye reflectors of glass stone. They made glasses, bro. They made eye reflectors of glass stone, which cured the ills of men. They purified men with a strange metal and purged them of evil spirits in flowing fire. We dwell in a land of three peoples, but those who came from Ramakui and Zidor were few in numbers. It was the men of Zidor who built the great guardian, which ever watches, looking towards the awakening place of God. The day he comes not, its voice will be heard. Chapter 1, verse 21 of the Book of the Manuscript. In olden days, when men lived in the ground, that's it right there. Boom. Duh. In the olden days, when men lived in the ground, there came the Great One, whose name is hidden, Son of Him, Son of the Son, Chief of the Guardians of Mysteries, Master of Rights and the Spoken Word, Judge of Disputes, Advocate of the Dead, Interpreter of the Gods and Father of Fishermen. From the west, From beyond Mandi came the Great One, arrayed in robes of black linen and wearing a headdress of red. Who taught men the secret ways of the days and the months? Who read the meanings of clouds and the writing of the night lights? Who taught the preservation of the body? The soul might commune with the living, and that it might be a doorway to the earth. Who taught that light is life? Wow. Who taught the words of God, which spoke to men and hid things from them, which stood in the places of truth for those with understanding, which spoke to the priests, the scribes, and the people differently according to their enlightenment? Who taught that beyond the visible is the invisible, beyond the small is the smaller, and beyond the greater, and all things are linked together in one? Who taught the song of the stars, which now no man knows, and the words of the waters which are lost? Wow. Who taught men to grow corn and to, what? Corn is indigenous to America, bro. I'm pretty sure of that. Who taught men to grow corn and to spin, to make brick and fashion stone after a cunning manner? Who taught men the rituals of seashells and the reading of their mysteries and the manner of their speech? Who taught men the nature of and knowledge of God, but in the years left to him could not bring them to understanding? Who then veiled the great secrets in simple tales, which they could remember, and in signs which would not be lost to their children's children? Wow. It says, who then veiled great secrets in simple tales. That's what we have today. Simple tales, but great secrets, which they could remember so they could remember them. He told them in simple tales and then gave signs which would not be lost to their children's children. Wow. Who brought the sacred eye from the distant land and the stone of light made of water by which men see God, and the fire, what? And the firestone which gathers the light of the sun before the great shrine? Who brought the sacred eye from the distant land and the stone of light made of water by which men see God, and the firestone which gathers light of the stone before the great shrine? That's incredible. I like it. He died in the manner of men, though his likeness is like of a god. Then they cut him apart, that his body might make fertile in the fields, and took away his head, that it might bring them wisdom. His bones they did not paint red, for they were not as those of others. These are the words of the sacred writings, recorded after the old customs, as they are, so let them be, for that which is recorded remains with you. The stone of light and the firestone were stolen in the days of disaster, and now none knows their resting place. Therefore, the land is empty. The scroll of Kamushari, okay, I wrote with that. Chapter 2, the scroll of Kamushari. In the fertile black land, there are those who worship the sun. So black land, that's Egypt, right? In the fertile black land. There are those who worship the sun, and they call it the greatest and the most bountiful among all gods, the seer of heaven, the orb of glory. They tell many tales about the coming of the sun people and of the land from which they came. They also tell of the squalid manner in which men dwelt before the golden one led his people hence. He came to this fertile land. Now it is a pleasant place. Hold on. second. Says, he came to this fertile land, which is, I guess, the dark land, which I imagine is Egypt. Now it is a pleasant place with many great cities, contented villages. There is the great broad river of fresh water, which rises and falls in its due season. So yeah, that's definitely the Nile. Canals there are, and waterways which led fertilizing water into the growing things, the herbage and the trees. So let me get back up here, since now that I know that this is Egypt. It says, in the fertile black land, there are those who worship the sun, and they call it the greatest and the most bountiful among all gods, the seer of heaven, the orb of glory. They tell many tales about the coming of the sun people and of the land from whence they came. They also tell of the squalid manner in which men dwelt before the golden one led his people hence. So before the golden one, so this golden one led his people there. He said, he came to this fertile land. Now it is a pleasant place with many great cities and contented villages. There is the great broad river of fresh water, which rises and falls in its due season. Canals there are, and waterways, which led the fertilizing water unto growing things, the herbage and the trees. There are flocks of sheep and herds of cattle on the green pastures. It was not ever thus in the days before Harakita came. So it wasn't like this before Harakita came. So the dude named the great golden one, I imagine, is the Harakita. All was barren and desolate, not divided the wilderness from the swamplands, with swamplands filled with reeds. Then there were no cattle or sheep, and the land knew not the hand of man. It lay until and unwatered. No land was sown, for they who dwelt in it knew not the making of waterways, nor did they know how to command the water and make it flow at their behest. There were no cities, and men dwelt in holes in the ground, or in places where the rock was cleft. They walked in their nakedness and clothed themselves with leaves or bark, while at night they covered themselves with the skins of wild beasts. They fought with the jackal for food and snatched dead things from the lion. They pulled roots from out of the ground and sought for sustenance among things that grew in the mud. They had none to rule over them, nor had they leaders to guide. They knew not obligation or duty. None spoke to them about their manner of life, and none knew the way of truth. They were truly unenlightened in those days. Then came the servant of the sun, and it was he who brought the people together and put rulers over them. He set Ramu up as king over the whole land. Ra more. Is that like Ra or no? He showed them man and woman how to dwell together in contentment as husband and wife, and he divided their tasks between them. He instructed men in the sowing of corn and growing of herbs. He instructed them in the tilling of the ground and the manner of cutting and waterways and canals. He it was who showed men the ways of the beasts of the field. He instructed men in the working of gold and silver and making vessels of clay. He instructed men in the hewing and cutting of stone and the building of temples and cities, the making of linen and the dyeing of cloth that form garments ever pleasing to the eyes. He did not teach. Okay. The making of linen and the dyeing of cloth that form garments ever pleasing to the eyes, he did not teach. Neither did he instruct them in making of bricks or the working of copper. Okay, so didn't it just say he instructed them in tilling of the ground, a matter of cutting the waterways and canals? Okay, so the ways showed men the ways of the beasts of the field, instructing men the working of gold and silver and making vessels from clay. Got you. I got you. He instructed men in hewing and cutting stone and building the temples of and cities, making of linen and dyeing cloth that forms garments ever pleasing to the eyes. He did not teach, neither did he instruct them of the making of bricks or the working of copper. Then when he departed, he bade them not to weep, for though he went to his father, the Son, who would adopt them as children, and all could become sons of the Son. Thus many became sons and servants of the Son, and they believed that they had heard that the Son was their Father, and the lights of goodness overlooking the whole land. It is this light that sustains all living things, but when it is the greater light which sustains the spirit, it is the light that enlightens the heart of men. There are lesser lights that guide men about their daily task and shield them from harm. There are unseen lights that influence men for good or ill, but it is the great light that banishes coldness and makes all men warm. The warmth is bestowed ripen the harvest of men and makes his herds yield their increase. So he kind of, it seemed to me that he, since they was like kids, he kind of told, instead of trying to describe God, he pointed them towards the Son. Since it's sustaining, you know, I mean, they can relate with the Son. So, but how can you try to, I mean, these niggas don't even know how to make bricks and shit. Like, you know what I'm saying? He had to teach them everything. How can you teach them about something that they can't see unless you use something of reference, something like the sun, which is the life giver? I mean, we know there's the most high light, but the sun is the manifestation of the love that he have over this creation. If you take the sun away, we probably all perish. Okay. It says it oversees the whole activity of men on earth, as it's talking about the sun. It oversees the whole activity of men on earth as it journeys the skies from one end to the other. Thus it knows the needs of all men. So the sun journeys the skies from one end to the other. Thus it knows the needs of all men. Therefore, be like the sun, be far-seeing and far-sighted. Be regular in your comings and goings while about your daily task. So build, that's knowledge. So build habits, you know, be regular about your daily tasks. Which is something that I don't do. I kind of been haunted with a small voice telling me, write a schedule. I mean, since my early 20s, and I never ever wrote a schedule, and I do kind of just like go from day to day. But that's pretty wise. It's a pretty wise piece right there. Be regular about your comings and goings while about your daily tasks. While their guide and leader left, the people knew themselves as children of the sun. They were warlike and subdued other people in its name and brought them under its rule. Then great temples was raised up to it, and for a time it displaced the greater gods which the people of this land had set up in their ignorance. Yeah. The one true God, it never displaced, for the true God was ever hidden from the eyes of the profane and ignorant. So all you niggas that don't believe in God, God is hidden from you. And that's just what it is. If you don't believe or don't have any type of sense of something greater than all of this, then it's been hidden from you. And you are profane and ignorant, nigga. Continue. Then some priests among those who followed the rule of the sun stole its spirit and brought it down, so that it unleavened the statutes and the images of their gods. Thus the spirit which which enlevens. What does that mean? More entertaining, interesting, or appealing. Gotcha. So, thus the spirit which is enlevens all the lesser gods is but the one spirit held in captivity, and not many as the people think. Let me read that over. Then some priests among those who followed the rule of the sun stole his spirits and brought it down, so that it enleavened the statues. So it made them brighter. It made them more entertaining, made them more appealing, more sights, more exciting to look at, and images of their gods. Thus the spirit which enlevens all the lesser gods is but one spirit held in captivity, and not many as the people think. So talking about the spirit of the sun. So did they create light? Did they learn light? It said, then some priests among those who followed the rule stole. Okay, so we'll go further now. Then came the wise ones from the east. So from the east of Egypt, if Egypt is where it is, from the east of there, came the wise ones, and they caused the people to have other thoughts. They were men who knew the ways of heaven. So we talking about probably Chaldeans. They were men who knew the ways of heaven, and asked the people, is the sun's spirit indeed supreme? Is this not a thing requiring much thought? Like, come on, bro. Consider its movements. Are they not more like those of one who is directed in his comings and goings? Does it move about freely as it wills, or is it restricted and held to its appointed path, like a yoked ox, or as the ass treading out corn? Does it rise up from the netherworld as it will, or go down into the cavern of darkness by its own decree? Is its path not more like that of a stone hurtled forth by the hand of a man? Is it not like a boat controlled by the will of a man rather than a free-range God? Is it not more like a slave under the directions of a master? These things distributed the hearts of the people. Some pondered upon them, but others, in the manner of men, cried death to those who deny the truth of these things. Oh man, that's crazy as hell. That's funny. That's funny, my bad. Hold on. Let me get back to it. That is funny. Well, if it some people, they thought they hit him, and it's like, yeah, this nigga, he can't be a god. I mean, this motherfucker does seem to be in control. Like it's controlled by something or something. Yeah, that's funny as hell. But it's a, what is it? Where is that at? So after as it said, they knew why they were men who knew the ways of heaven. So these people knew the truth. And they came and taught the Egyptians that the sun can't be God. I mean, because come on now, you really think that this is God? Doesn't it seem like it's being controlled and it has a course that it's been put in its on its course? And some of them, you know what I'm saying, they pondered upon it, you know what I'm saying? Said, don't this mug seem like it's a slave? Come on now, this is your God. You think this is the Most High? They said these things, I said distributed, these things disturb the hearts of the people. Some ponder upon them, but others, in the manner of men, cry death to those who deny the truth of these things. Wow, typical. However, because of these things said, the worship of the older gods grew in strength, for the people had never turned from Sirah, who was with them before the first water canals was cut. He was not the God of the highborn, but of the lowly people. This is a land of two peoples, a land of two nations, two priesthoods, two streams of wisdom, and two hierarchies of gods. It is a land where the light of truth burns brightly, though hidden away from the eyes of all but a few, in the land of dawning on earth. Cool. That's hot right there. I like that. I mean, it's like I said, bro, if this book is 3,600 years old, yeah, I rock out with this. I mean, even if this mug is written in 1980, bro, this shit got some heat. Even it make just that little segment right there that make you ponder about, people and their gods, and like, why would you consider the sun a god? Or, like if I was a sun worshiper and somebody said that to me, it would have disturbed me. Like, yeah, that shit is like, come on. Anyway, continuing. Chapter 3, The Destroyer, Part 1. It says, men forget the days of the destroyer. Only the wise know where it went and that it will return in its appointed hour. It raged across the heavens in the days of wrath, and this was its likeness. So this is what it was like. It was as a billowing cloud of smoke enwrapped in a ruddy glow, not distinguishable in a joint or limb. Its mouth was an abyss from which came flame, smoke, and hot cinders. When age passed, certain laws operate upon the stars in the heavens. Their ways change. There is movement and restlessness. They are no longer constant, and a great light appears readily in the skies. When blood drops upon the earth, the destroyer will appear, and mountains will open up and belch forth fire and ash. Sound like volcanic eruptions. Dang, that's hard. All of this, that little bit is hard. I mean, think about this. Look what he said. When ages pass, certain laws operate upon the stars in the heavens. Their ways change. Their ways change. There is movement and restlessness. There are no longer constant, and a great light appears readily in the skies. So this is obviously not the sun and not the moon when this thing happens. It says, when blood drops upon the earth, and the destroyer will appear, and mountains will open up and belch forth fire and ash. Trees will be destroyed and all living things engulfed. Waters will be swallowed up by the land, and seas will boil. The heavens will burn brightly and readily. There will be a copper hue over the face of the land, followed by a day of darkness. A new moon will appear and break up and fall. The people will scatter in madness. They will hear the trumpet of battle cry of the destroyer, and will seek refuge within the dens of the earth. Terror will eat away their hearts, and their courage will flow from them like the water from a broken pitcher. They will be eaten up in the flames of wrath and consumed by the breath of the destroyer. Thus it was in the days of the heavenly wrath, which have gone, and thus it will be done in the days of doom when it comes again. The times of its coming and going are known unto the wise. These are the signs and times which shall precede the destroyer return. All right, listen up. Y'all tell us, y'all tell me if this is not what's going on. Says this if we not on the doorstep of this right here, listen to this. It says 110 generations shall pass into the west, and nations will rise and fall. Men will fly in the air as birds and swim in the seas as fishes. Men will talk peace one with another. Hypocrisy and deceit shall have their day. 3,600 years. Like this shit just happens over and over again the same way. You feel what I'm saying? It just happened the same thing over and over again. And look this is what's going on. It said we are flying as birds and swimming in the seas as fish. Men shall talk peace with one another. Hypocrisy and deceit shall have their day. Women will be as men and men as women. Passion will be a plaything of man. Listen to this. A nation of soothsayers shall rise and fall, and their tongue shall be the speech of learned. A nation of lawgivers shall rule the earth and pass away into nothingness. One worship will pass into the four quarters of the earth, talking peace and bringing war. A nation of the seas will be greater than any other, but will be as an apple rotten at the core and will not endure. A nation of traitors will destroy men with wonders, and it shall have its day. Then shall the high strive with the low, the north with the south, the east with the west, and the light with darkness. Men shall be divided by their races, and the children will be born as strangers among them. Wow. Wow. Brother shall strive with brother, and husband with wife. Fathers will no longer instruct their sons, and the sons will be wayward. Women will become the common property of men and will no longer be held in the regard and respect. Then men will be ill at ease in their hearts. They will seek they know not what, and uncertainty and doubt will trouble them. They will possess great riches, but be poor in spirit. Then will the heavens tremble and the earth move. Men will quake in fear, and while terror walks with them, the heralds of doom will appear. They will come softly as thieves to tombs. Men will not know them for what they are. Men will be deceived. The hour of the destroyer is at hand. Wow. Yes. Then will the heavens tremble and the earth move. Men will quake in fear, and while terror walks with them, the heralds of doom will appear. They will come softly as thieves to the tombs. Men will not know them for what they are. Men will be deceived. The hour of the destroyer is at hand. In those days, men will have the great book before them. Wisdom will be revealed. A few will be gathered for the stand. It is the hour of trial. The dauntless ones will survive. The stout-hearted will not go down to destruction. Great God of all ages, alike to all, who sets the trials of men, be merciful to our children in the days of doom. Man must suffer to be great, but hasten not his progress unduly. Wow. So wow. So God, it's the trial. God causes the destruction, or this is the way, so that it increases man. It increases him. Because it said earlier that the earth is not for pleasure, it's a training ground. That's what this book said. So great God of the ages, alike to all, who sets the trials of man, be merciful to our children in the days of doom. Man must suffer to be great, but hasten not his progress unduly. You want him, so you gotta make him suffer so he grow, but you don't want to push him to where he's progressed too much. In the great winnowing, be not too harsh on the lesser ones among men. Even the son of a thief has become your scribe. O sentinels of the universe who watch for the destroyer, how long will your enduring vigil last? O mortal men who wait, the destroyer part 2, my bad. O sentinels of the universe who watch for the destroyer, how long will your enduring vigil last? O mortal men who wait without understanding, where will you hide yourselves in the dread days of doom, when the heavens shall be torn apart and the skies rent in twain, in the days when children will turn gray-headed? Damn. This is the thing which will be seen. This is the terror your eyes will behold. This is the form of destruction that will rush upon you. There will be a great body of fire, the glowing head with many mouths and eyes ever changing. Terrible teeth will be seen in formless mouths, and the fearful dark belly will glow readily with fires inside. Even the most stout-hearted man will tremble and his bowels will be loosened, for this is not a thing understandable to men. It will be a vast sky spanning, forming in wrapping earth, burning with many hues within wide open mouths. These will descend to sweep across the face of the land, engulfing all the yawning jaws. The greatest warriors will charge against it in vain. The fangs will fall out, and lo, there are terror-inspiring things of cold-hardened water. Great boulders will be hurled down upon men, crushing them into red powder. As the great salt waters rise up in its train and roaring torrents pour towards the land, even the heroes among mortal men will be overcome with madness. As moths fly swiftly to their doom in the burning flame, so will these men rush to their own destruction. The flames going before will devour all the works of men. The waters flowing will sweep away whatever remains. The dew of death will fall softly as great carpet over the cleared land. Men will cry out in their madness, "Oh, whatever beings there is, save us. Fall this from this tall form of terror. Save us from the great dew of death." The doom shape called the destroyer in Egypt was seen in all the lands thereabouts. The color, it was bright and fiery, in its appearance changing and unstable. It twisted about itself like a coil, like the water bubbling in a pool from the underground supply. And all men agree it was the most fearsome sight. It was not a great comet or a loosened star, being more like a fiery body of flame. Its movements on high were slow. Below it swirled in the manner of smoke and remained close to the sun, whose face it hid. Wow. This was seen from Egypt. It says the doom shape called the destroyer in Egypt was seen in all the lands thereabouts. In color, it was bright and fiery in appearance, changing and unstable. It twisted about itself like a coil, like waters bubbling in a pool from an underground supply, and all men agree it was a most fearsome sight. It was not a great comet or a loosened star, being more like a fiery body of flame. So like being more like a body. It said its movements on high were low. Below it swirled in the manner of smoke, and it remained close to the sun, whose face it hid. There was a bloody redness about it, which changed as it passed along its course. It caused death and destruction in its rising and setting. It swept the earth with great cinder rain, and caused many plagues, hunger, and other evils. It bit the skin of men and beasts until they came molted with sores. The earth was troubled and shook. The hills and mountains moved and rocked. The dark smoke filled heaven's bow over earth, and a great howl came to the ears of living men, borne to them upon the wings of the wind. It was the cry of the dark Lord, master of dread. Thick clouds of fiery smoke passed before him, and there was an awful hail of hot stones and coals of fire. The doom shape thundered sharply in the heavens and shot out bright lightnings. The doom shape thundered sharply in the heavens and shot out bright lightnings. The canals of water were turned back unto themselves when the land tilted, and great trees were tossed about and snapped like twigs. Then a voice like 10,000 trumpets was heard over the wilderness, and before its burning breath, the flames parted. Wow. The whole of the land moved and mountains melted. The sky itself roared like 10,000 lions in agony, and bright arrows of blood sped back and forth across its face. That's some pretty heavy stuff right there, dog. It says, then a voice like 10,000 trumpets was heard over the wilderness, and before its breathing and before its burning breath, the flames parted. The whole of the land moved, and land and mountains melted. The whole of the land moved and mountains melted. Melted mountains, that's proof. The sky itself roared like 10,000 lions in agony, and bright arrows of blood sped back and forth across its face. Bright arrows of blood sped back and forth across its face. Earth swelled up like bread upon the heat, the hearth. This was the aspect of doom shape called the destroyer, when it appeared in the days long gone, in olden times. Is thus described in the old records, few of which remains. It is said when it appears in the heavens above, earth splits open from the heat like a nut roasted before the fire. Then flames shoot up from the surface and leap about like fiery fiends upon black blood. Then flames shoot through the surface and leap about like fiery fiends upon black blood. The moisture inside the land is all dried up, and the pastures and cultivated places are consumed in flames, and they and all trees become white ashes. The doom shape is like a circling ball of flame, which scatters small fiery offsprings in its train. What? The doom shape is like a circling ball of flame, which scatters small fiery offspring in its train. It covers about a fifth of the sky, and it sends wreathing snake-like fingers down to earth. Before it, the sky appears frightened, and it breaks up and scatters away. Midway, it's no brighter than night. It spawns a host of terrible things. These are things said of the destroyer in old records. Read them with solemn heart, knowing that the doomed shape has its appointed time and will return. It will be foolish to let them go unheeded. Now men say such things are not destined for our days. May the great God above grant that to be so. But come, the day surely will, and in accordance with his nature, man will be unprepared. Whoa. Whoa, Jack. Damn. This is from the Egyptian priest. Damn, bro. Nigga said, yeah, nigga say it ain't gonna happen. And he said, well, I pray to God that be the truth. He said, but come, the day surely will. And in accordance with his nature, man will be unprepared. So this thing, let me see something. I just wanna see something. Yeah. Man, this mug right here sucks. I do got a lot going on. Let me get rid of some of these. Strange mystery of Naga fireballs. Just see. Let's just see. I'm stressing my computer out. Yeah, let me stop before I mess up the, let me get back to this. Okay. So basically the mug come through. It's not the sun, because it says that it blocks the sun out. It blocks the face of the sun out. And it comes through and it burns everything up. And as it's coming through, look at what it says. This says the doom shape is like a circling ball of flame, which scatters small fiery offspring in its train. It covers about a fifth of the sky and sends wreathing snake-like fingers down to the earth. Before it, the sky appears frightened, and it breaks up and scatters away. Wow. So the sky opened, the sky cracked. Midway, it is no brighter than night. It spawns a host of terrible things. These are things said of the destroyer in the old records. Read them with solemn heart, knowing that the doomed shape has its appointed time and will return. It will be foolish to let them go unheeded. Now men say, Such things are not destined for our days. May the great God above grant this to be so. But come, the day surely will, and in accordance with his nature, man will be unprepared. Chapter 6, The Dark Days. The dark days begin with the last visitation of the destroyer, and they were foretold by strange omens in the sky. All men were silent and went about with pale faces. The leaders of the slaves, which had built a city to glory of Thom, stirred up unrest, and no man raised his arm against him. They were foretold great events of which people were ignorant, and of which the temple seers were not informed. These were days of ominous calm, when the people waited for they knew not what. It says, so these days were ominous calm, when the people waited for they knew not what. The presence of an unseen doom was felt, and the hearts of men were stricken. Laughter was heard no more, and grief and wailing sounded throughout the land. Even the voices of children were stilled, and they did not play together, but stood silent. The slaves became bold and insolent, and women were the possession of any men. Fear walked the land, and women became barren with terror. They could not conceive, and those with child aborted. All men closed up within themselves. The days of stillness were followed by a time when the noise of trumpeting and shrilling as heard in the heavens, and the people became as frightened beasts without a herdsman, as asses when lions prowl without their foal. The people spoke of the God of the slaves, and reckless men said, if we knew where this God were to be found, we would sacrifice to him. But the God of the slaves was not among them. He was not to be found within the swamplands and in the brick pits. His manifestation was in the heavens for all men to see, but they did not see with understanding, nor would any God listen, for all were dumb because of the hypocrisy of men. The dead were no longer sacred and were thrown into the waters. Those already tombed were neglected, and many became exposed. They lay unprotected against the hands of thieves, who once toiled long in the sun, bearing the yoke himself, now possessed oxen, who grew no grain, now owned storehouses full. He who once dwelt at ease amongst his children, now thirsted for water. He who once sat at the sun with crumbs and dregs was now bloated with food. He reclined in the shade, his bowels overflowing. The meek shall inherit the earth. Wow. Cattle were left unattended to roam in strange pastures, and men ignored their marks and slew the beasts of their neighbors. No man owned anything. The public records were forecast and destroyed. And wow, the public records were cast forth and destroyed. And no man knew who were slaves and who were masters. The people cried out to the Pharaoh in their distress, but he stopped his ears and acted like a deaf man. There were those who spoke falsely before Pharaoh and had gods hostile towards the land. Therefore the people cried out to their blood to appease it. But it was not these strange priests who put strife in the land instead of peace, for no one was even of the household of Pharaoh and walked among the people unhampered. Dust and smoke clouds darkened the sky and colored the waters upon which they fell in a bloody hue. Plague was throughout the land, and rivers was bloody, and blood was everywhere. The blood was a vial, and men's stomachs shrank from drinking. Those who did drink from the river vomited it up, for it was polluted. The dust tore wounds in the skin of men and beasts, and the glow of the destroyer, the earth was filled with redness. Vermin bred and filled the air and faced of the earth with loathsomeness. Wild beasts afflicted with torments under the lashing sand and ashes came out of their lairs in the wasteland and cave places and stalked the abodes of men. All the tame beasts whimpered and the land was filled with the cries of sheep and moans of cattle. Trees throughout the land were destroyed, and no herb of fruit was to be found. The face of the land was battered and devastated by the hail of stone, which smashed down all that stood in the path of the torrent. They swept down in hot showers, and a strange flowing fire rained from the ground in their wake. The fish of the river died in polluted waters. Worms, insects, reptiles sprang from the earth in huge numbers. Great gusts of winds brought swarms of locusts which covered the sky as the destroyer flung itself through the heavens. It blew great gusts of cinders across the face of the land, and gloom of long night spread a dark mantle of blackness, which extinguished every ray of light. None knew when it was day and when it was night, for the sun cast no shadow. Wow. The darkness was not the clean blackness of night, but a thick darkness in which the breath of men was stopped in their throats. Men gasped in the hot cloud of vapor which enveloped all the land and snuffed out all lamps and fires. Men were benumbed and lay moaning in their beds. None spoke to another or took food, for they were overwhelmed with despair. Ships were sucked away. Ships were sucked away from their moorings and destroyed in great whirlpools. It was a time of undoing. The earth turned over as clay spun upon a potter's wheel. The whole land was filled with uproar from the thunder of the destroyer overhead and the cry of the people. There was the sound of moaning and lamentation on every side. Earth spewed up its dead corpses. The earth spewed up its dead. Corpses were cast out of their resting places, and the embalmed were revealed to the sight of all men. Pregnant women miscarried, and the seed of men was stopped. The craftsman left his task undone. The potter abandoned his wheel, and the carpenter his tools. They departed to dwell in the marshes. All crafts were neglected, and the slaves lured the craftsmen away. The dues of Pharaoh could not be collected, for there was neither wheat nor barley, goose nor fish. The rights of Pharaoh could not be enforced, for the fields of grain and the pastures were destroyed. The highborn and the lowly prayed together that life might come to an end, and the turmoil and thundering cease to beat upon their ears. Wow. The highborn and the lowly prayed together that life might come to an end, and the turmoil and thundering ceased to beat upon their ears. Terror was the companion of men by day, and horror their companion by night. Men lost their senses and became mad. They were distracted by frightfulness. On the great night of the destroyer's wrath, when his terror was at its height, there was a hail of rocks, and the earth heaves as pain rent her bowels. Gates, columns, and walls were consumed by fire. Wow. So all of the destruction that we see all over the earth right now today came from prior destroyer events. I mean, bro, this is a magnificent find. This is a magnificent read, actually. Let's continue this. It says, hold on. It says terror was the man. Terror was companion of men by day, and horror their companion by night. Man, this is the final. This is like the nightmare. Like as I was reading and I seen everything. This is crazy, man. This is what is about to befall us, and they're pretending that this weather phenomenon, what they say, what is it called? Green Earth movement and all of this, that, and the other has anything to do with the way the weather is changing, and we're actually about to face this event. I mean, we seeing a red sun. We seeing this other light in the sky. We're starting to see that. On the great night of the destroyer's wrath, when its terror was at its height, there was a hail of rocks. Think about rocks, bro. Where do rocks come from? Like boulders just scattered everywhere, all over the world. Like they're not born. Where do rocks come from? Somebody tell me, where do rocks come from? Oh shoot, you know what? Let me do this. Bam. Look, really enjoying this read. This is a crazy read, bro. 3,600 years old, telling my future, your future, the future of our children. It can happen anytime. I mean, we're seeing signs all over the world. I mean, we seeing, and then like if you look at how it's like they hid what happened and put them in tales for children that children can understand. Y'all don't see that? They hid this coming cataclysmic event. You know, I'm smiling because it's something that I always knew. I always imagined it. You feel what I'm saying? I've had plenty of dreams, you know, concerning. I actually dreamed about these tall black creatures running all over the place, looking for specific people, like moving really fast, like, you know what I'm saying, all over the place. And I was running with some kids, and I ran into a little room, and a cop was in there hiding. We could see people running across back and forth, you know, upstairs, outside. And that door opened, and a tall black creature with bug-shaped eyes, you know what I'm saying? But he was black, or like black. I only can see reflection on his eyes. Everything else was pure black. And mother stood down and came in there, and that cop just started crying, and I just woke up quick as I can. I was like, damn, man, I don't want to see no shit like that. I mean, but we gonna see. It's more to come. Like, it's more things to come that's gonna come upon earth. If this is true, I mean it kind of line up with the scripture, you know what I'm saying? Let me get back to it, dog. Let me get back to it. Where we at? Let me see. Screen share. Boom. Where's my little face at? Back to my little face, nigga. There we go. There we go. Your boy in the place to be. All right, back to the reading. I left off at so it wasn't no wheat, no barley, it wasn't no goose or no fish. So Pharaoh couldn't enforce his fields. This is after the destroyer comes. But listen, it says, for the fields of grain and pastures were destroyed. The highborn and the lowly prayed together that life might come to an end, and the turmoil and thundering ceased to beat upon their ears. Terror was the companion of men by day, and horror their companion by night. Men lost their senses and became mad, and were distracted by frightfulness. On that great night, the destroyer's wrath, when its terror was at its height, there was a hail of rocks, and the earth heaved as pain rent her bowels. Gates, columns, and walls consumed by fire, and the statues of gods were overthrown and broken. People fled outside their dwellings in fear and were slain by the hail. Those who took shelter from the hail were swallowed when the earth split open. The habitations of men collapsed upon those inside, and there was panic on every hand. But the slaves who lived in the huts and the reed lens at the places of pits were spared. Wow. The habitations of men collapsed on those inside, and there was panic on every hand. But the slaves who lived in huts in the reed lands at the places of pits were spared. Whoa. Who were these slaves that were spared? The land burnt like tinder. A man watched upon his rooftops, and the heat and the heavens hurled wrath upon him, and he died. The land withered up in wrath of the destroyer and groaned. It says the land withered and under the wrath of the destroyer and groaned with agony of Egypt. It shook itself, and the temples and palaces and nobles were thrown down from their foundation. Their highborn one perished in the midst of the ruins, and all the strength of the land was stricken. Even the great one, the firstborn of Pharaoh, died with the highborn in the midst of the terror and falling stones. The children of princes were cast out in the streets, and those who were not cast out died within their abodes. There were 9 days of darkness and upheaval, while a tempest raged such as never had been known before. When it passed away, brother buried brother throughout the land. Men rose up against those in authority and fled from the cities to dwell in tents in the outlands. Egypt lacked great men to deal. Egypt lacked great men to deal with the times. The people were weak from fear and bestowed gold, silver, and lapis, lazuli, topaz, turquoise, and copper upon the slaves. And their priests they gave chalice, urns, and ornaments. Pharaoh alone remained calm and strong in the midst of confusion. The people turned to wickedness, and their weakness and despair harlots. The people turned to wickedness in their weakness and despair. Harlots walked through the streets unashamed. Women paraded their limbs and flaunted their womanly charms. Highborn women were in rags, and the virtuous were mocked. The slaves spared by the destroyer left the accursed land forthwith. Their multitude moved in gloom Their multitude moved in gloom of a half dawn under a mantle of fine swirling gray ash, leaving the burnt fields and shattered cities behind them. Many Egyptians attached themselves to the host, for one who was great led them forth, a priest prince of the inner court, fire mounted upon on high, and its burning left with the enemies of Egypt. fire mounted up on high, and its burning left with the enemies of Egypt. It rose up from the ground. Zola. Can you hear me? Zola. Can you hear, bro? Yeah, I hear you. Hold on, I ain't tried to. Hold on. I don't, man. It's like my first time doing it. I'm trying to get it right. No, who? Oh no, it's cool. I'm putting it in for record. I'm just recording this book, bro. This is what happened to Egypt, bro. This that I'm reading is what happened to Egypt that fucked it up. That fucked it over, bro. Why it looks like it do. As you've seen, the title is called the Kolbrin Bible. Have you ran into it? The Kolbrin. 3,600 years old. Said to be written first by an Egyptian priest, and then second by a Irish Druid. I know Kolbrin. Yep. The destroyer, bro. The destroyer spared the slaves of Egypt, bro. This destroyer, bro. Did you see where I started at? It's the deal. It's that deal, bro. It's that deal. Hey, yo, and you know who the Celtics are, right? Nah, my guy. Nah, the Celtics are sons of Judah. The twin, Zara Judah, that left before the Egyptian Exodus. Appreciate it, man. Thanks a lot. And where do we leave off at? Okay, so we know. So right now, what I'm realizing is that these slaves that were spared after the destroyer ran through. So this destroyer, this destroyer is, I already know who it is, right? I already know who it is. In 7 days, by Rimrar, the accused ones journeyed to the waters. Hold on, wait a minute. All right, so this was said. Fire mounted upon high, and its burning left with the enemies of Egypt. So the enemies of Egypt was the ones that was left, the slaves. So yeah, that's where it said they threw gold. They threw gold. It says Egypt lacked great men to deal with the times. The people were weak from fear and bestowed gold, silver, lapis lazuli, turquoise, and copper upon the slaves. And to their priests they gave chalice, urns, and ornaments. Pharaoh alone remained calm and strong in the midst of the confusion. The people turned to wickedness in their weakness and despair. Harlots walked through the streets unashamed. Women paraded their limbs and flaunted their womanly charms. Highborn women were in rags, and their virtues were mocked. The slaves spared by the destroyer left the accused land forthwith. Their multitude moved in the gloom of a half dawn under a mantle of fine swirling gray ash, leaving the burnt fields and shattered cities behind them. Many Egyptians attached themselves to the host, for one who was great led them forth, a priest prince of the inner court, a priest prince. I bet you that's Moses. For mounted upon high, and its burning left with the enemies of Egypt. It rose up from the ground as a fountain and hung as a curtain in the sky. So this pillar of fire that was is connecting, bro. This is crazy. So it's like a part of the Genesis story. It says, in 7 days, by Rimrah, the accused ones journeyed to the waters. They crossed the heaving wilderness while the hills melted around them. Above, the skies were torn with lightning. They were sped by terror, but their feet became entangled in the land, and the wilderness shut them in. They knew not the way, for no sign was constant before them. So this is why it took so long, because they leaving in the midst of a cataclysmic event. They getting out of Egypt in the midst of a cataclysmic event. And this is, according to this narrative, it says, they came up against the waters which blocked their way, and their hearts were in despair. The night was a night of fear and dread, for there was a high moaning above, and black winds from the underworld were loosed, and fire sprang up from the ground. The hearts of the slaves shrank within them, for they knew the wrath of Pharaoh followed them, and that there was no way of escape. They hurled abuse upon those who led them. Strange rites were performed along the shore that night. The slaves disputed among themselves, and there was violence. Pharaoh had gathered his army and followed the slaves after he departed. There were riots and disorders behind them, for the cities were plundered. The laws were cast out of the judgment halls and trampled underfoot in the streets. The storehouses and granaries were burst open and robbed. Roads were flooded, and none could pass along them. People lay dead on every side. The palace was split, and the princes and the officials fled, so that none was left with authority to command. The list of numbers were destroyed, public places were overthrown, and households became confused and unknown. Pharaoh pressed on in sorrow for behind him all was desolation and death. Before him were things he could not understand, and he was afraid, but he carried himself well and stood before his hosts with courage. He sought to bring back the slaves, for the people said their magic was greater than the magic of Egypt. The host of Pharaoh came upon the slaves by the saltwater shores, but was held back from them by the breath of fire. A great cloud was spread over the host and the darkened sky. None could see except for the fiery glow and the unseeing lightnings which rent the covering clouds overhead. A whirlwind arose in the east and swept over the encamped host. A gale raged all night, and in the red twilight dawn, there was a movement of the earth. The sea waters receded from the seashore and were all rolled back on themselves. There was a strange silence, and then, in gloom, it was seen the waters had parted, leaving a passage between. The land had risen, but it was disturbed and trembled. The way was not straight or clear. The waters about, as if spun within a bowl, and swampland alone remained undisturbed. For the horn of the destroyer came, a high shrilling noise which stopped the ears of men. The slaves had been making sacrifices in despair. Their lamentations were loud. Now, before the strange sight, there was hesitation and doubt. For the space of a breath, they stood still and silent. Then all was confusion and shouting, some pressing forward in the waters against all who sought to flee back from the unstable ground. Then in exaltation, their leader led them in the midst of the waters through the confusion. Yet many sought to turn back into the host behind them, while others fled along the empty shores. All became still over the sea and upon the shore, but behind the earth shook and boulders split with a great noise. The wrath of heaven was removed to a distance and stood upwards of two hosts. Still, the host of Pharaoh held its ranks, firm in resolve before the strange and awful happenings, and undaunted by the fury which raged by their side. Stern faces were lit darkly by the fiery curtain. Then the fury departed, and there was silence. Stillness spread over the land, while the host of Pharaoh stood without movement in the red glow. Then with a shout, the captains went forward, and the host rose up behind them. The curtain of fire had rolled up into a dark billowing cloud which spread out as a canopy. There was a stirring of waters, but they followed the evildoers past the place of the great whirlpool. The passage was confused in the midst of the waters, and the ground beneath unstable. Here, in the midst of a tumult of waters, Pharaoh fought against the hindmost of the slaves and prevailed over them, and there was a great slaughter amidst the sand and the swamp and the water. The slaves cried out in despair, but their cries were unheeded. That's because they went back. Instead of pushing forward, those was the ones that decided to go back. And they turned back towards the host behind them. It says the possession were scattered behind them as they fled, so that they were easier for them than for those who followed. Then the stillness was broken by a mighty roar, and through the rolling pillars of clouds, and the wrath of the destroyer descended upon the host. The heavens roared as 1,000 thunders, and the bowels of the earth were sundered, and the earth shrieked in its agony. The cliffs were torn away and cast down. The dry ground fell beneath the waters, and the great waves broke upon the shore, sweeping the rocks from the seaward. The great surge of rocks and waters overwhelmed the chariots of the Egyptians who went before the footmen. The chariot of Pharaoh was hurled into the air as if a mighty hand, and was crushed in the midst of the rolling waters. Tidings of disasters came back by Rageb, son of Tophmah, who hastened on ahead and terrified the survivors because of his burning. He brought reports to the people that the host had been destroyed by the blast and the deluge. The captains had gone, and the strong men had fallen, and none remained to command. Therefore the people revolted because the calamities which had fallen before them. Cowards slunk from their lairs and came forth boldly to assume the high offices of the dead. Calmly and noble women, their protectors gone, were their prey. And the slaves of greater number had perished before the host of Pharaoh. Of the slaves, the greater number had perished before the host of Pharaoh. The broken land lay helpless, and invaders came out of the gloom like carrion. The broken land lay helpless, and the invaders came out of the gloom like carrion. Orion, I don't know. Let me see what that word is. Meaning Orion is dead and petrifying flesh unfit for food. Oh. The broken land lay helpless, and invaders came out of the gloom like flesh, rotting flesh. Okay. A strange people came up against Egypt, and none stood to fight, for strength and courage were gone. The invaders led by Al-Kenan came up out of the land of gods because of the wrath of heaven, which had laid their land waste. There too had been a plague of reptiles and ants, signs and omens, and earthquake. There also had been turmoil and disaster, disorder and famine, with great breath of the destroyer sweeping the ground and stomping the breath of men. So this probably where the story of the haikus come in. The land of the gods. What's the land of the gods? Says a strange people came up against Egypt, and none stood to fight, for strength and courage were gone. The invaders, led by Al-Kenan, came up out of the land of gods because of the wrath of heaven, which had laid their land waste. There too had been a plague of reptiles, ants, signs and omens, and earthquake. There also had been turmoil and disaster, disorder and famine, with the great breath of the destroyer sweeping the ground and stomping the breath of men. And Turah gathered together the remnants of his fighting men and the fighting men who were left in Egypt, and set forth to meet the children of darkness who came out of the eastern mountains by way of the wilderness and by way of Yethnobis. They fell upon the stricken land from behind the great cloud before lifting the darkness and before the coming of the purifying winds. Ragib went with Pharaoh and met the invaders of Hiroshar, but the hearts of the Egyptians were faint within them. Their spirits were no longer strong, and they fell away before the battle was lost, deserted by the gods above and below. Their dwellings destroyed, their households scattered. They were as men already half dead. Their hearts were still filled with terror and with the memory of the wrath which had struck them from out of the heaven. They were still filled with the memory of the fearsome sight of the destroyer, and they knew not what they did. Pharaoh did not return to his city. He lost his heritage and was seized by a demon for many days. His woman polluted and his estate plundered. The children of darkness defiled the temples with rams and ravished women who were crazed and did not resist. They enslaved all who were left, the old, young men, and boys. They oppressed the people, and their delight was in mutilation and torture. Pharaoh abandoned his hopes and fled into the wilderness beyond the province of the lake, which in the west towards the south. He lived a goodly life among the sand wanderers and wrote books. Good times came again even under the invaders, and ships sailed upstream. The air was purified, the breath of the destroyer passed away, and the land became filled again with growing things. Life was renewed throughout the whole land. Tyre taught these things to the children of light in the days of darkness, after the building of Rambuthith, before the death of Pharaoh Ankh. This is written in this land and in our tongue by Lueder, who himself chose it for saving. It was not seen until the latter days. Wow. Wow, man. It's pretty deep. All right, chapter 7, the third Egyptian scroll. This is the manner by which, hold on, let me get something. Yeah, I want to record this, man. I want this there forever, bro. This is way more descriptive than the Bible, bro. It's a shame, like, no, man. Like, this better than the Bible. Bro, this book probably right here, bro. It probably, bro, this book right here is way more descriptive than the Bible. I guess you had to read both, you know what I'm saying? But you can see what they did, how they had to, because it even said earlier that they had to write it for, because the people didn't understand. They had to write it for children. They had to write it like they was writing for children or whatever. So all these little stories that we see is understandable now. But if they told us, like, if I grew up knowing that this shit go like be fucked up, like one day something gonna run through this bitch and fuck everything up, and you gonna see like it's like not worth a lot of things. A lot of things don't have as much value when you actually get that realization that sometime soon nothing will matter. Only surviving, living, your relationship with a God, with your God. But anyway, chapter 7, the third Egyptian scroll. This is the manner whereby the sacred record shall be kept. And their number is 12 books and 442 scrolls. 4 copies shall be made, and each shall be rolled on a stick of black wood. Each shall be enclosed within a pickled skin, and upon them and bound with a leathern thong. So they want to make sure it's preserved. They want to give it some make sure it's preserved. It said, each shall be enclosed within a pickled skin and bound with a leathern thong. It shall be placed with spices in a box of copper, which shall be enclosed in a box of wood, bound about with hide and pitched. Each of the 4 appointed places shall be 4 hewn masonry receptacles, within which shall be contained the great arks. They shall be kept by the guardians at 4 quarters of the earth, and no copy shall be made, except one be destroyed. Nothing shall be added, and nothing shall be taken away from the books, except it be done according to the books, and the signs of the books shall be counted according to the customs of writing. It sound like these niggas is Israelites. I'm telling you, this Egyptian priest is an Israelite. His whole everything about the nigga, that how his whole style of writing, and how even you can tell if this is the actual translation, if it's correct. Okay, chapter 8, the 4th Egyptian scroll. It says, man directs his life by the laws of God and the statutes of men. The statutes of men, which are for the good of men, are to be upheld by the children of light, who shall not live for the next life alone. Who shall not live for the next life alone. These laws, though stricken on marble and set up on everlasting pillars at the gateways of the temples, are but diversions for the eye and exercise for the tongue, unless on tablets, also on tablets of your heart. Sound like the Bible. Like basically saying, unless you put it in your heart, just having them up on the wall don't mean nothing. A man does not obey the statutes because they are the law of the land, but because they accord with his nature and inclinations. The true nature of man stems from the godly directive within, and is therefore above the edicts of kings. In upholding the laws and statutes, the chief concern should be a man's good intent. If he intends well and is diligent, he can be forgiven much. But if he intends well and is thoughtless, then he shall not be looked upon so kindly. Remember, men do not dispense justice. They can but hope to serve it. God alone knows who is good and wicked within his heart. Therefore, he alone can dispense true justice. This right here is an Egyptian talking, bro. I'm telling you, they Israelites. These Muslims Israelites. It says, these are the laws by which man will live. A man will not, it says, will live. A man will not have intercourse with a woman child. A man will not rob another with violence or plunder or steal. A man will not slay willfully. A man will not cheat another or act deceitfully towards him. A man will not utter lies to lead another into error. A man will not carry off food so that another is deprived of the fruits of his labor. A man will not utter words of blasphemy or use foul language. A man will not trespass upon the privacy of another or violate the sanctity of his household. A man will not pillage the grain land or spoil the pastures. A man will not listen in secret to the speech of others. A man will not practice degrading things. A man will not slander another. A man will not have intercourse with the wife of another man. A man will not pollute himself. A man will not leave his household to go abroad about his tasks unwashed. A man will not terrorize the unprotected or unreasonably attack any man. A man will not break the just statutes of the land. A man will not stir up strife maliciously. A man will not make woman and children weep in fear. A man will not commit any deed of impurity. A man will not pass judgment hastily or in grip of wrath. A man will not unnecessarily associate with half men or cowards. A man will not defile running waters. A man will not curse the sacred things. A man will not reject his kinfolk or leave his children unprotected. A man will not use what another has used after his death. A man will not lie with a pregnant woman 3 months before she gives birth. A man will not revile his parents. A man will not mock the afflicted. A man will not expose the nakedness to maidens or children. A man will not torment the helpless or corrupt the young. A man will not harbor an adulterer. A man will not pardon the lust and weakness of others or seek to profit by them. So you can't be no pimp. A man will not raise a harlot above her chosen station. A man will not desert the path of duty, even though it led him down to death. A man will not turn a blind eye to weakness. A man will not speak in language of slaves. A man is ever a man. He abides by things because he is a man. If he turn aside from even one of them, he may be cursed with the triple curse. Wow. That's pretty deep right there. I like it. As Israelite, man, I'm telling you, these bugs, either it's something universal, bro, because even the Celtic dude, he kind of like saying the same stuff. And this is accounts of the cataclysmic event, but the law that have to be given back to men, everything got to be put back in order. You know what I'm saying? So after these destructions, there's nobody there to lead them. So they have to remake laws. Okay. Chapter 9, the half scroll of Jasok. A man is not a man in the eyes of God according to the standards of men, but according to the standards of God. Amen. A man is silent and calm. He stands steady like a rock amidst the tumult of raging waters. He bears himself patiently before the temper of a wrathful man and controls himself in the presence of fools. That's hard. He bears himself patiently before the temper of a wrathful man and controls himself in the presence of a fool. His decisions are made clearly and without undue haste. This Egyptian text, but it's this Israelite ideology. This is Psalms. This is wisdom of Solomon. Did Solomon read this? Nah, this 3,600 years old. Shit. That his decisions are made clearly and without undue haste. He is prepared for whatever may befall. His reckoning embraces both success and failure. A man judges all men equally by one standard and accepts each to act according to his capacity. He is prepared to meet strength. So this is the book that they hid away, that they sealed away, and put them in four corners of the earth. But we reading what the original laws are. If this book is what it say that it is, the claim to be. That man judges all men equally by one standard and accepts each to act according to his capacity. He is prepared to meet the strength with strength. He does not shriek the issue with violent men, nor does he suppress his wrath when the cause is just. A man safeguards his reputation and challenges those who would steal it from him. He is prudent and wary. He is not easily beguiled. He weighs all things in his mind and concludes all things by reasoning. A man receives the stranger with hospitality and politeness. He gives generously to the needy and eases the burden of the heavy laden. He is cheerful under difficulties, and his face is never sullen or mean. That's what's up. He ain't all that hard looking shit. A man never fawns upon his superiors, nor does he oppress his subordinates. He is neither a hypocrite nor a coward. He does not mock the afflicted, and his arm is ready to their assistance. If he sees evil men at work, he does not turn aside. A man is impartial in his dealings, for he is fair and just to all men. He understands the duties and responsibilities of a man and places these before his own welfare. He does not seek the places of pleasure when there is a task at hand. A man befriends the friendless and oppressed. He supports the man in want. He respects the aged and infirm. He acts for the ignorant and shields them from the design of crafty men. He instructs the unlearned. A man makes peace within the peace in just, and war within the war is justified. He makes peace when the peace is just, and war when the war is justified. A man never betrays his friend, nor does he avoid him. This shit is 3,000 years old, bro. It's hard. A man never betrays his friend, nor does he avoid him in his time of trouble. His friendship is not a thing of thistledown to be blown away before the first puff from the wind of adversity. He is vigilant in his cause of justice and swift to right a wrong. A man acknowledges his ignorance and welcomes the teacher. He is ever eager to learn. He gives bread to the man who is hungry and drink to the thirsty man. He provides a bed for the wayfarer and provisions to the victim of misfortune. A man does not avoid his debts or shirk his obligations. He is resolute He is resolute in the face of adversity. He is not humiliated in death or cowed by greater strength. A man is gentle at home and forceful in the field. He is yielding at play and determined in the chase. He does not provoke a fight, neither does he avoid one. A man remembers his manhood at all times. A man who is a man treats a woman as a woman. Man, it sounds like something you supposed to be having your boys grow up repeating over and over and over again. Like, this is hard. I like it. It's 3,600 years old, nigga. This right here. All right. Chapter 10. What time is it? Chapter 10. Scroll of Kulak. Section 4. These things are wicked and must be opposed. Remember, the law has to be reestablished because the earth was judged. The earth was destroyed. All over the world seeing this being or whatever it was that destroyed it. So time has passed. It said that the men had got sick and the women had got sick, but the sickness that befell the mothers passed over the children. So you had a lot of children coming up. Wow. So laws have to be reestablished and given back to the people, and these laws are to be passed down over and over again. If I'm not mistaken, the pillars in the Masonic order it's 2 pillars. I forgot their names, but it's a story behind that. The son of Noah, Noah. So Methuselah had sons, and he had his sons that were fashioned and working stone and leather. Put this particular story, I'm assuming, on the pillar, telling it what happened. One was to be done with leather in case the earth was to be destroyed by water, and one was to be done with stone in case the earth was to be destroyed by fire. And that's what the 2 pillars represent. So this book is probably the secret that they were hiding, and these what we're reading is the information or the tools that you use to reestablish society after said event occurs. Chapter 10, Scroll of Kulak, Section 4. These things are wicked and must be opposed: fornication and seduction. For they degrade womanhood, lies and deceit, for they sear the soul, unclean ways and lewd speech, for they corrupt the body and lead along the path of unwholesomeness. By these laws you shall live. A man shall not uncover his private parts unduly before men, or expose them before any women, not his wife, or before any child. If he do, he shall not go unpunished. A woman shall not show her nakedness to any man, or appear unduly unclad before any woman. If she does so, she shall be whipped and secluded. A child being able to walk shall not go naked. A woman child shall not uncover her private parts before any person. Man, dog, that's some black living. This is how I was raised. Actually, this is exactly how I was raised. Neither mother nor father shall uncover themselves before their children, nor shall they permit their children to reveal their nakedness. If they do so, they shall be punished at the task. If any man touch the private parts of a woman child for lust, he shall be branded and whipped and cast out forthwith. If any man uses a man child for lust, he shall be branded and cast out forthwith. Any man using a beast for lust purposes shall be removed from among the people, that he live among the beasts of the wasteland. And that's another thing to consider too. Outside of what is being reestablished, it's a vast wasteland. Society's not being built. They don't have these laws. They're as it was as I was reading in the Book of Creation, which was the first cataclysmic event. You know what I'm saying? They was eating flesh. They was stealing flesh from, the lions and fighting with the jackals for food. So yeah, man. I mean, dang. So it's a lot to think about after said cataclysmic event, this destroyer. Shit. All right. So any man being cast out and removed from the people shall lose his possessions, which shall become the property of those to whom he caused harm or disgrace. Chapter 11. 64th Egyptian scroll. This is the Egyptian scroll. Okay. This is called the Book of the Manuscripts. It says, it is the dark night of wickedness when ignorance covers the earth. Yet, though the pillars of heaven fall, though the great abyss open, the earth shall not end until its purpose is fulfilled. This is no new thing, for the darkness of ignorance has often followed the bright days of spiritual illumination. But we who dwell under the shadow of darkness see not but the sorrows of our times. When the sonship lies at anchor, then will dawn the day not followed by darkness. What? When the sonship lies at anchor, then will the dawn followed by darkness. Anyway, look in the place of judgment. They are filled with low people, and unclean feet rest upon the footstools. Priests grow fat on riches bestowed for the preservation of the body, while those who speak of the preservation of the soul are tormented. Men talk of the delights of life, but we are yet uncultured, decaying flesh unseen by vultures.